Okay, let's get started. Back here with another podcast. Here with Mark from Bushmills. He's going to talk to you about the range, about Bushmills as a whole, and a new project that they're releasing. Well, this week, I suppose.
Yeah, very soon. Yeah, at this stage, a couple of days.
Yeah.
So
it's probably all boxed up, sitting in the warehouse, ready to go. I imagine.
Ready to go. Yeah. Itching to get out there. So
Yeah.
very exciting.
Yeah. So start off. Who are you? What are you to Bushmills, and
Yep.
how did you get into that role? I suppose.
So I'm the brand ambassador for Ireland.
Yep.
For Bushmills, obviously being the home market, it's quite a busy one.
Yeah.
At times. But basically what I do, I take in everything education.
Yeah.
Around the brand. So starting the conversation of who we are at Bushmills, what we do, and for me, most importantly, why we do what we do as well. I think that's a really important part of that story. So it's dealing with consumers, it's dealing with members of the trade as well, and ensuring that everybody knows that story, is comfortable with the story of Bushmills, and trying to inspire people into the world of Bushmills, of why we do what we do. Mm-hmm. So that obviously takes in Ireland, and of occasion I get to travel further afield.
We were talking about that before, about the some of the places you're visiting soon, and hopefully getting to visit, like South Africa, Portugal, places like that. So pretty fun job.
That's very exciting. That's a very exciting part of the job, because the knowledge base out there for the world of Irish whiskey and the world of Bushmills might not be the same as it is here.
No.
So it's exciting to see people who are being exposed to the world of Bushmills for the first time.
Yeah.
And being able to sort of tell our story to them as well. So
it must be a weird thing from being from here. Everyone knows Bushmills.
Yeah.
Whether you drink whiskey, whether you drink at all, you know what Bushmills is.
Yeah.
And going to a place and just saying, "Oh, have you ever heard of Bushmills?" And people will say no.
Yeah.
But that's an odd experience.
It can be, yeah, but it doesn't happen too often, I would say. But what we hope is, whether we have those people for an hour, a day, a week, if we can then impart, like I said, some of our passion and some of our love for the brand, which more often than not we do.
Yeah.
Then it's, there's more Bushmills drinkers out there in the world being exposed to our liquids. So that's a very rewarding part of the job as well, when you see that kind of come to fruition.
Yeah. And do you find whenever you go other parts of the world, do you find that it's just Bushmills Original, Black Bush, or do you find the single malt, which we'll get to later, the single malt range is getting bigger out there? I know, like the causeways and stuff, you have particular ones in particular countries and stuff, but do you find it's just the core range, or do you find the single malts as well starting to grow?
Well, naturally, as you'd expect, Bushmills Original and Black Bush are very, very popular globally. You'd be hard pressed to find any hole in the hedge bar in any town from Toom to Timbuktu that doesn't have a bottle of Bushmills Original somewhere behind a back bar. So the knowledge and the exposure to the likes of Bushmills Original and Black Bush is quite high globally. In terms of single malts, it's growing 100%. We have some incredibly powerful, strong markets for our single malt ranges globally. But also with that, it's quite an exciting age for Irish whiskey in general, because there's a lot of exciting non-traditional whiskey markets that are starting to emerge. Yeah. So I think we spoke about a few of them off air there, but the likes of Nigeria, South Africa, kind of coming into its own as well. So there is obviously work to do in conveying our message out there, but that's the part of the job that we love, being able to tell the story. So having those markets available to us and being able to kind of branch into them and expose people to Bushmills is fantastic.
That connection with like Scotch whiskey has always been a big thing since really Irish whiskey kind of took its bit of a downturn. Do you think the single malt, because you're Bushmills and you single malt, you have that little connection that makes it a little bit easier sometimes, instead of like the likes of the Milton Distillery all doing like single pot stills? Do you find the single malt sells a little bit better because of that, or do you think that matters in any way?
I think in general, across the globe, people have more of a knowledge base around single malt whiskies than they would perhaps pot still, because pot still is traditional to Ireland.
It's quintessentially Irish.
Exactly. So exposure to different styles of whiskey might not be as prevalent as it would be with single malts globally. And like, you mentioned Scotch there as well, proudly sort of displaying the Scotch malt whiskey and stuff like that. So through different whiskies, be it Scotch or Irish, single malt definitely does strike a chord with people. What we would tend to see is particularly in the like Southeast Asian market, single malt is king.
Yeah,
and that's with any spirit. You know, I worked in a previous life with a range of single malt spirits that weren't whiskey.
Right. Okay.
So a single malt vodka and a single malt gin, which their most dominant market was in Southeast Asia, because that initial sighting of a single malt spirit, that just denotes quality automatically straight away to some people. So yes, it does help, but there's a reason for our love of single malt as well.
Okay.
It runs fairly deep. So I mean, in terms of the overall story of Bushmills, we've always distilled single malt Irish whiskies.
Yeah.
So that's our passion. That's where our love really comes from. It dates the whole way back to 1608 when we were first granted our license to distill by King James I. So that's 417 years and counting that we've been distilling single malt Irish whiskies. So, you know, you learn a few things along the way, but it's fair to say that we've sort of honed our craft in that time, and single malt is where we found a home. To some people, it is deemed to be the premium grain to use within whiskey distillation. Obviously, there'll be people who disagree with that. But for us, we're certainly in that camp. And I mean, we firmly believe that we distill some of the best and most innovative single malts in the world, and that's definitely a path that we're going to continue down with. Metaphorically speaking, the blinkers on.
So there's no temptation to go and do a single grain or a single pot still or anything like that. Is that? I'm guessing that's because you're so firm into the single malt and you do make fantastic single malts. It's just like we're good at this. We're the best Irish whiskey that does this. Let's just stick to this. Or is there that temptation to dabble?
Well, it's a question I get a lot. As you can imagine. And I suppose the stock answer is never say never, but I'd be very surprised if there was any deviation. My kind of line, I suppose, that I adopt, even before I get into the role that I'm in now, generationally I come from a line of Bushmills fans. So I was fairly invested in the brand even before working with Bushmills. And I firmly believe if you're the best at something, keep on doing it. So never say never. I'd be very, very surprised if there was ever a Bushmills single grain or a Bushmills pot still. Having said that, it's people above me who make those decisions. So should that ever come to pass, I mean, I'll gladly take that liquid out on the road with me and spread that message as well. But I would be fairly confident that because of our love and our passion for single malt whiskies, that's the path that we will continue down and continue to innovate within that sphere, more so than anything else.
Because everything I know of Bushmills, apart from the original and the Black Bush, which were technically blends, everything's single malt, and I think Causeways and everything all single malt, and I think well, like you say, if you do it right, why stop?
Absolutely. And you know, it's at this stage as well, it's tradition, it's history, and it's legacy. Like I said, 417 years that we've been distilling with single malt. So if there was ever probably going to be a deviance from that, I dare say it would have happened sooner than this.
So there's not like a bottle hidden away in the vault somewhere that's
not to my knowledge. That's a vault I haven't got access to yet, if it does exist. But having said that, you know, we are very, very committed to innovating within the world of single malt. You know, you touched on Causeway Collection there. For me, that's some of the most experimental, most innovative projects to have come out of Bushmills. And probably in some instances help people to kind of reimagine what single malt Irish whiskies can be. You know, so that's definitely something that we're pulling the thread on. We're certainly not finished with in terms of that innovation. There are a couple of things that are developing very, very nicely as we sit here speaking. So we continue to kind of monitor them, and hopefully they get their day in the sun at some point in the Bushmill story.
I know that I don't know the exact stats, but I remember doing the tour and them saying that there's a number of casks of whiskies out there that has never been done before, but it's not necessarily ready or something like that. So like Bushmills is innovative. It's always been like that, and I think it's always been like that since even before the big Irish whiskey boom.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's kind of evidenced by a lot of, if you take in our Causeway Collection, for example, a lot of them are 20+ year old malts.
Yeah.
You know? And the experimentation was happening early in that process.
Yeah, well, there's like what the 97s, 99s,
Yeah.
etc. Like, there's talking the years I was born. Like, they've been sat in barrels, and the experimentation has been thought of that long.
Even the 2002 vermouth cask.
Yeah.
That was a world's first ever for utilising vermouth casks in whiskey globally, not just in Irish whiskey. So that was an off the wall kind of crazy idea that we wanted to explore, because curiosity is our currency.
Yeah.
Basically, you know, if we're sitting on something for too long thinking what if, we're just going to go and do it.
Yeah.
Because we need to scratch that itch of that curiosity. So
it's kind of a thing with Irish whiskey as well, though. Because you have to let it sit and age.
Yeah.
If you sit on an idea, someone else might beat you to it, and you're not going to know until the bottle comes out and it's on the shelf. So
exactly.
you have to just go for it.
Exactly, and somebody has to be first through the door with these projects. We like to think we're on the right end of that. For a lot of occasions. So you know, and there's nothing off limits, I suppose, with our innovation, with our creativity. You know, we've fantastically lucky to have two things that no other distillery in the world has, and that's Colin Egan, our master distiller, and Alex Thomas, our master blender. So there really is, you know, for anybody who has met and had time to speak with Alex and just hear her story, her passion for Bushmills. She heads up the majority of our innovative projects. Yeah. And there really is no better placed person to...
I've had like maybe one or two conversations with her, and just the knowledge and the passion is just oozes out. You can just hear it just in her voice. She kind of she starts talking and you just listen because of the things that she knows about and everything, and you just...
Absolutely. I mean, I still find this interesting, and I'll not labour on this one for too long, but prior to joining Bushmills, her career was in the timber industry.
Right, okay.
So she spent years working in the timber industry. So I find it really, really interesting and naturally rewarding that she had her career lineage from going to knowing everything there was to know about wood types, and that sort of thing, porousness and that, to then taking that into a whiskey context. So in terms of, you know, sending somebody, here's your plane ticket, here's your passport, go to X place across the world and source some of these really innovative, creative, and sort of groundbreaking sort of casks at times, there's no better person placed. You know, so we're very, very lucky to have Alex involved in that creative process. And I mean, in my opinion, I don't think she's got any off the mark yet. You know, they've all hit a bullseye. So she's really head up the creative end of that project, and there's, like I said, more to come from that. So
I imagine since she's joined with that knowledge of wood, there's been new casks made of things that you wouldn't necessarily make a cask out of. Not to dive too deeply into it to get you accidentally in trouble, but I imagine there's a couple of different things now sat which is unconventional. Yeah, which go back to that being
potentially. I mean, there's so much I can talk about with that. What I would say, and is obviously in terms of legality behind Scotch whiskey and behind Irish whiskey, you know, we have somewhat more creative freedom in terms of our caskings. You know, Scotch whiskey, legally has to be matured in oak casks. The legal definition for Irish whiskey or specification is wooden casks. So if you have an eye for detail, and you're able to circle one word and it's that wooden versus oak, then, you know, the creative among the industry kind of go, okay, there's lots of wood types out there that we can experiment with and explore. And I mean, you'd be silly, I suppose, not to pull that thread. And
well, there's some that have already done it, like Glendalough do the Mitzenura cask. Teeling have the Mugu, Mugu, something like that. There's another Japanese wood cask. So you really can find different ways to do it.
And there's plenty of examples out there of, you know, like one of our most popular selling whiskies at the distillery was our acacia wood. You know, and people just took to that. You know, it really was a fan favorite for a long time. Even to the extent of I know of bars both in Belfast and Dublin who periodically would drive up to the distillery to take multiple cases, just so there was always a stockpile there. So that's an example of kind of the innovation there as well. But there's as you can imagine, in some of our maturation warehouses, there's plenty of examples of those experimental wood types and stuff that can't speak about now, but hopefully, hopefully you would see in the coming years.
We'll move on to a bit more the traditional style of whiskey making, and we'll go through the malt range. Obviously everyone knows about the two main blends, so we'll kind of leave them out, but we'll start with the Bush 10.
Absolutely. So I mean, sort of what you have in front of you is a bit of a lineage of the Bushmills malt portfolio, the family, I suppose. We've developed that quite significantly over the past 3 years, I would say, in particular. A staple of that is the 10-year-old. So I've just realised I forgot to bring your glass.
I've got one
across. You've got one here.
I have prepared.
Happy days. So the 10-year-old, obviously, you know, Joe, I sometimes have my off-the-wall tasting notes that I like to sort of subscribe to and go down to. Ones that are maybe slightly more relative in conversation and not too complex. So the 10-year-old, believe it or not, is the start of our single malt portfolio. Much in the same way as Bushmills Original is the origin of the story. The 10-year-old is the origin point, starting point of our malt portfolio. So I categorize this in a way as bear with me on this, as a barbecue whiskey. Okay, and what I mean by that is, obviously we're quite lucky today that we have a wee bit of sunshine here, but it's not always the case, or it's very seldom the case. So what I mean by that barbecue whiskey is, this is a whiskey that is quite light, floral and approachable. There's not too much mental admin really needed with this, so you can take it for what it is, which is just a fantastic, easy everyday sipper. And the reason why this has a special place in our heart, the 10-year-old, for anybody who works in Bushmills, this is really the matured version or the epitome of our DNA, our Bushmills DNA. So that's something I'll probably talk about over the next 5 whiskies. But our DNA, meaning our new make spirit, is incredibly distinct. Bushmills fans will know it and love it. They might have experienced it before. If you've been on a tour, it fills the air. There is an aroma of green apple, orchard pear, milk chocolate that just kind of flows through the air of Bushmills, and on a good day, surrounding towns and villages as well. So if we can get the wind to carry it. So there's 4 pillars that are really, really distinct in that DNA, and green apple, orchard pear, a touch of sort of zesty lemon citrus, and then that milk chocolate undercurrent, which you're always going to get from your use of malted barley and distillation. So those 4 pillars, they really make up the spine, the backbone of every single drop of Bushmills that's distilled, be it Bushmills Original or right the way up to our relatively new 46-year-old single malt. So they've all started out life in the exact same way. The caskings that we use in the 10-year-old, and I'll pour you a drop here now, bourbon and Oloroso sherry. For anybody who's a Bushmills fan, that will be no great surprise. They're 2 casks that we love using in terms of our maturation base. They work incredibly well with our new make spirit, and they accentuate some of those key notes in our DNA as well. So more often than not, you'll see a dual cask maturation between bourbon and Oloroso sherry with Bushmills. But this is really, for us, the mature version. It has seen wood. It's the mature version of our new make spirit, basically. So there's lots of green apple, lots of that orchard pear. It's very orchard fruit led, and like I said, just light, approachable, floral. And for me, it's one of those everyday sippers.
It's a very, very good whiskey. I'm gonna try it now anyway. But I think price point as well. It's very, very affordable for your Tuesday night drinker, like that sort of.
Absolutely. So I mean, in terms of your individual price point here, you would know more than me. I'll not quote anything that I'm not 100% about.
So I think $35.99 off the top of my head. We'll link it all in the bottom of the description anyway.
So I mean, the main thing for us, and hopefully it's kind of carries across as we go through the following whiskies. The main thing for us is about having all of our whiskies approachable and accessible to people. So we're not in the business, or it's not in our interest to tack on zeros for the sake of zeros. There are, in my own personal opinion, there are some crazy numbers thrown around in world whiskey these days. A lot of which are just unaffordable. when we're honest about it. And this is not in any way, shape or form the company line, but I firmly believe at Bushmills, 417 years into the story, we're not in the business of making ornaments.
No.
We're in the business of making whiskey. And where we get our satisfaction and our gratification is from seeing people either trying some of these liquids for the first time and really enjoying them and being taken aback, or the other side of that, the old faithful, our fans coming back to something that they know and love and feeling that they can comfortably do so.
Yeah.
So that's of paramount importance to us. Again, whether that's a bottle of Bushmills Original or a 46-year-old single malt, we will always try and make our whiskies as approachable and as accessible as possible.
Yeah, that you always want people to drink the whiskey rather than it sit on the side. Is really prevalent in like the 25 plus.
Yeah,
it was the first question I asked Gary when he came in, and he showed us the bottles for the first time, and I was inspecting the bottle because a bottle that's normally around above probably 150 plus always has a bottle number, batch number, but you guys don't do that.
Yeah.
For them ones, it's a bit different for the Causeways because they were a bit more of a limited release, but that goes back to we want people to drink it. You don't want it to sit on the shelf collecting dust.
Exactly. And obviously once you come into the 25s of the world, etc., yes, you are in the world of sort of prestige whiskey, I suppose. But again, for someone out there, that is absolutely the everyday sipper. Not me, unfortunately, just yet. But yes, again, it does come back to, just because that is a 25-year-old single malt or a 30-year-old single malt or a 46-year-old single malt, should you be in a position to purchase that whiskey or purchase a measure of that whiskey, then we want you to feel comfortable in doing so. Yeah. And like I said, we as a company, there's so many years of love, care, passion and attention, skill and expertise and everything in between that's gone into every single one of these whiskies. So naturally we want people to feel as comfortable as possible, popping that cork, pouring themselves a dram, sit themselves down and enjoying it. Because that's, like I said, that's where we get our satisfaction, that's where we get our gratification. There is always going to be cost associated to whiskey, that's unavoidable. But like I said, we'll always endeavour to try and make that as approachable and as accessible as possible. Yeah.
Back to the 10. Absolutely. Absolutely love it. Yeah, you really do. I think you definitely do taste the green apple more than anything. You had a little bit of the dry fruit on the finish from that Oloroso. And little tiny hints of spice from the bourbon, but not too much. Yeah. But that green apple it sits through it nicely, and you really do taste that, and very approachable, very easy drinking.
For me, and this is probably the starting point of like the this one's maybe not too much of a crazy tasting of. We gravitate through them and they get a wee bit more nuts. But so for the 10-year-old, for me, the bourbon cask will always bring those quintessential bourbon notes. So your innate sweetness, honeys, vanillas, caramels, toffees, butterscotches, etc. Oloroso sherry. I am a sherry cask lover. If I see some semblance of sherry cask involved in a whiskey, likelihood is I'm in. You've already got me. Oloroso typically will bring dried fruits and spices. So a lot of what will come across will be the likes of raisins, dates, into figs, morello, cherry, plum, those sorts of things, cinnamons, nutmegs. So without using too much of a I suppose quintessential note, Oloroso sherry would be quite Christmas cake-esque, but that doesn't for me necessarily travel through in the 10-year-old.
No, not as much. There's like the slight hint on the finish, but
what we're doing is veering slightly more into the bourbon cask here. So how it actually comes across for me, yes, big hits of orchard fruit. You'll never hear me in any whiskey tasting chatting about toasted leather or sandalwood or anything like that, because I don't subscribe to it personally. I've never experienced that in a whiskey, and I've tried a lot of whiskeys globally. So I try to keep things a bit more relative, and why I said that the 10-year-old is just really approachable and accessible and there's something just quite wholesome about it is, for me, it's like your granny's apple tart with a wee sort of dusting of sugar over the top. That's the dusting of the sugar, that's the bourbon cask for me. That's that innate sweetness that you come to love and expect. And you've maybe seen why I made the point of, for us, the 10-year-old is quintessentially our New Make spirit, quintessentially our DNA, because that orchard fruit travels through so prevalent.
Yeah, definitely does.
It's just the green apples and pears, and it's very bright, vibrant, sort of fruity and floral.
Yeah. I'm just gonna grab a spoon. I hate doing this, but I won't be able to work after if I drink all of it, unfortunately.
I take no offense.
The 12-year-old, as we said at the start, this is the new project.
This is new. Yeah. So we're getting a bit of an exclusive here. Yeah. So this is a project we've obviously been calibrating over the past couple of months in terms of bottling, packaging, things like that. But definitely something that we wanted to add a couple of strings to the bow of our core malt range. And there's another example of that coming up. So the 12-year-old was one that we fell in love with. It's quite different. It's 11 years in bourbon and Oloroso sherry, and then up to a year in Marsala wine casks. Yeah. So anybody who's a fan of Bushmills, they'll be no stranger to the fact that we like utilising some fortified wines in there as well. So Marsala haven't been in one of those. Probably in terms of what I hear in feedback, one of our Causeway collections, the 95 Marsala.
Yeah, I think from people,
for a lot of people.
Yeah,
and it's virtually gold dust trying to find these days. So
definitely is.
It's Marsala and the world of fortified wines is something that we delve into quite a bit. Yeah. It's something that we find very, very interesting because no two strains of fortified wine are the same. Yeah. And whereas we always look for consistency within our whiskies, we love challenging ourselves as well. So because fortified wines can typically be so robust and intense in the best possible way, it gives us a challenge from a maturation point of view as well, that two casks coming from the exact same sort of from the exact same winery can be completely different. Yeah. So there's a real broad spectrum involved there with fortified wines, and we want to experience them all. We want to explore them all. Yeah. When we'll get there, we'll see, but we're doing our best to sort of deep delve in. So I'll pour you a dram.
Yeah. So there's a distillery exclusive 12-year.
Yes.
What's the difference? Why did you go for a new 12-year and not like a 13, 14-year?
Well, so the distillery exclusive, by its name, by its nature, you'll have to be at the distillery to pick up your bottle and things like that, and that's a lovely it's a lovely thing to be able to leave with, particularly for our traveling guests, our international guests who are coming to visit us in the distillery. What we had found was that our 12-year-old was incredibly popular for one in the distillery, and that there was an appetite for more exploration, like I say, within that world of fortified wines from the Bushmills portfolio. Yeah. Like I sort of touched on it there initially, but the 95 Marsala was a yardstick, I suppose, for want of a better word, in terms of how we dealt with Marsala and how consumers would feel about it as well. And it just went off the charts in terms of popularity. So we knew that the atypical Bushmills fan had an appetite for Marsala interaction on our liquids. So
that's what inspired you to go ahead with this?
That's what inspired to a degree. I mean, again, what we do, if you can imagine or try to imagine sort of the scale of the operation, we're constantly and consistently laying down liquid. Yeah. Some experimental, a lot of which that there are no immediate plans for. Yeah. We will lay liquid down in a quite experimental way and just continue to monitor its development. Yeah. And we know when it's good to go. Quite serendipitously, this has fallen, as a 12-year-old right after our 10, and it's quite neat in bridging the gap. Yeah. A number of years ago, if we were to go back, even 2 years, the core portfolio here would be 10, 16, 21. Yeah. So it was always in our interest to bridge that gap to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But the liquid had to be absolutely right.
Yeah.
In that instance, we were just lucky that a couple of our experiments just absolutely hit the nail on the head and were exactly where we wanted them to be. And perhaps in that context, lucky is the wrong word, because you know there's some of the best minds in whiskey working up at our distillery, so there's a great deal of skill and expertise involved there as well. But we did want to close the gap between 10 and 16. Like I said, the liquid had to be absolutely right. We definitely were lucky in the fact that we had plenty of experiments to continue to monitor its development and choose from. We felt that the Marsala just had gone exactly to where we wanted it to go. That it was deemed to be, for want of a better word, perfect. Perfection is fairy dust; it doesn't exist. So, but in our mind, the day and hour that you stop striving for that, you know, we're already beat. So, we will never get to perfection, but if we can get fairly close, we'll be happy enough. Bridging the gaps with some of these experiments and seeing how they're perceived in the market as well is of paramount importance to us. You know, for want of a better word, you know, Bushmills fans had maybe asked over the past 20 years, 15 years, whatever it might be, for a peek under the curtain at Bushmills to see kind of what was happening. Someone said to me fairly recently enough that Bushmills is like the Area 51 of whiskey, because you never really know what's happening behind the scenes. Yeah,
I feel like even if you open the doors, like people would just not know what to do, what to look at, and it wouldn't be a day out kind of thing. It would be a week out kind of thing.
And that's
and I think you still wouldn't even cover some of the things that's going on in there.
Well, that's the way that we like it, you know. What we have done is in the past couple of years, and I maybe broaden this out to the past 5 years, 6 years, you've seen a lot of releases from Bushmills because you ask and we will deliver, you know. So people are starting to see exactly what's been going on over the past couple of years, be that within our prestige range of 25, 26-year-old crystal malt, 30, 31-year-old, the Causeway collection coming out as a powerhouse of what it was in terms of the world of cask strength experimentals. But with that as well, we had an appetite to add to our core range too, and for people to be able to find again a whiskey that's perfect for them, because that's, at the end of the day, that's our mission.
Do you think the 12 and the 14 were kind of to bridge the gap, or do you think it was a case of, okay, these whiskies are ready to be something new, different? Because there was always, like you said, the 10, and then it jumped up to the 16. You're going from about £35 up to £86. Do you think then the 12 and 14 was trying to fill that gap, or do you think they were just like...
Outsiders looking in could think that it was a strategic decision. It was serendipitous. It really was, hand on heart, in that, yes, in an ideal world, we would broaden our core range. Every distillery wants to do that. Every distillery wants to release some of the experiments and the projects that they've been working on. As it so happened with the 12 and the 14, it was down to quality of liquid, how it developed over time. We're not, as a distillery, we're not so much bound by time in the same way as a lot of other distilleries are. We have, like I said at the start, 417 years under the belt, so we can wait another couple of years to ensure that something is absolutely bang on. As it just so happened with these two liquids, you know, we have some of the best palates and whiskey minds in the world who deemed that these were absolutely bang on where they were,
ready to go.
You can always risk an additional year. And I say a risk because you might not enjoy it as much with an additional year's interaction with whatever particular cask or liquid type that it's been interacting with. So we rely on the palates and the minds of the people we have in Bushmills, and believe me, there is no people better placed to make those decisions, particularly when you have the likes of Colin and Alex heading that up. So if they say that the 12 is absolutely bang on where they want it to be, that's bang
it's
on
time to go.
where they want it to be. Wasting more time.
And so that will be released in the coming weeks.
Yes. So that it will be released next week. So, but you will, start to see it trickling out everywhere.
Yeah.
In the coming weeks, it's been incredibly popular. So far, from chatting to our guys who are out on the road and our sales guys who are kind of leading that up. It's such an exciting time to be a fan of Bushmills now. Yeah. That when people hear that there's a new release coming from Bushmills, there's not too much convincing needed, really.
Yeah, no, I know as soon as we get that 12 in, it'll be gone very quickly, because that's what the 14 we got, I think 2 or 3 cases in, and they were gone in the first couple of days.
Yeah. And it's, again, it sort of comes back to what I was saying about making things as approachable and as accessible as possible. I believe that the price points that we have for the core range here are absolutely bang on. They're very attractive.
Yes.
And designed to have that sort of comfortability and being able to pick it up, pop it open, pour yourself a dram and enjoy.
Yeah. Perfect. And then the 14. Yeah. So this was released, would it be a year ago now?
It's just over a year.
Yeah.
So it was April last year.
Yes.
So I know that because I launched it. So this is one that I talk of very, very fondly. Obviously the 5 whiskies we have in front of us here, I love every single one of them.
Yeah.
But much in the same vein as someone asking a parent who their favourite child is, they might blush and say I couldn't possibly answer. 14 is my favourite child. So I might be a bit biased towards the 14, but it's just exceeded expectations in my own mind.
Yeah.
So for a couple of different reasons. So this is something very, very different from Bushmills, and it stands in a very, very small subcategory of its own.
Okay.
So, like it said a short while ago, Bushmills, to a degree, is synonymous for a couple of things, and that's that new make spirit, that real distinct new make spirit, that DNA. Also, that use, that dual casking of bourbon and Oloroso sherry. That's almost expected from Bushmills, and there are occasions throughout our portfolio, our entire portfolio, where we kind of throw a bit of a curveball at is there. So this is one of the only examples of a whiskey in our core range that doesn't contain any sherry cask influence whatsoever.
Right, okay.
So seemingly someone somewhere thought I was getting too easy of a job. Wanted to do something different, but there's method behind it. So this is a first fill bourbon and second fill bourbon maturation.
Okay.
And then finished in Malaga wine casks.
Right.
So it's quite out there. It's quite experimental. And it's, like I said, not what people would traditionally expect from Bushmills. But this is one which I've been blown away by. You'll know yourself that typically when a new whiskey is released, there's a lot of hype and a lot of hysteria, and you have 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 months of people scrambling over themselves.
Yeah, kind of mad for it.
To get it. And you see a massive spike in sales.
Yeah.
And then typically, just as happens with absolutely everything, even outside of whiskey, you'll see a natural bit of a dip.
Yeah.
We haven't seen that with the 14.
No, I think even for ourselves, the 14's always...
Yeah.
I wouldn't say a dip, but it's definitely, like, at the very start, like I said, we sold those cases out very quickly, but then it's always been consistently, like, it's been up, like, the 10's very good value for money, and the 14's, I'd say it's close to matching it.
Yeah.
And it's, I'm not going to say double the price, but it is a jump, a little bit of a jump up there.
Yeah. What we've seen is that initial spike.
Yeah.
For sure. Because it's a new whiskey and it's interesting and intriguing. So we've seen that initial spike, and then it's just continued to, at a slower pace, but continued to grow and grow and grow. And we haven't seen that decline. And what really interests me as well, and might be controversial, is I come from a cocktail background. Before I get into brand work, and I'm probably one of the biggest advocates you will meet for single malt whiskies and cocktails.
Okay.
Which is not everybody's cup of tea. I get told that regularly on Instagram.
Yeah.
But what we've seen as well is a lot of the most reputable and award-winning cocktail bars around Ireland and further afield utilising the 14-year-old as a base in cocktails.
What do you think it is in the 14 that lends itself well to cocktails?
Well, I'll pour you a dram and then we'll get into it. So,
because I've always had I never worked in like a really good cocktail bar or anything, but I've always had that interest in cocktails. And I always see that people say don't use your best spirits for it, and using I think we sell for about £60 odd a bottle seems a bit like one of my better whiskies to use in a cocktail kind of thing.
Yeah, so this is kind of my logic and my thinking behind it is I've heard people say that before, and actually often I've had people message me on Instagram when they see some of the cocktail content that's going out and saying, you know, that's sacrilegious, that's an absolute sin. You drink good whiskey neat and you use crap whiskey in your cocktails, and that never made sense to me, because if you're going out for a meal, you know, you want the best ingredients. You want the chef to utilise the best ingredients that he possibly can to give you the best meal that you can. Yeah. If you're going and grabbing a coffee, you want that coffee to be the freshest coffee from the best beans that possibly can be to give you the best coffee. So I never understood that comment of I only use crap whiskey in cocktails and hot whiskies and in Irish coffees and things like that, because I firmly believe whatever way you like to enjoy your whiskey is the correct way to enjoy your whiskey. And if anybody tells you how to enjoy your whiskey, they're wrong. Yeah, it's something that a lot of people have been saying recently. I remember when I first started bartending, and people would be of a different mind to that, but now it's absolutely drink it however you want. Absolutely, and you know, there still are some people out there completely set in their ways. It's, I suppose, the job of me and other brand ambassadors and people working in cocktail bars and things like that to sort of change the mindset ever so slightly. But you know, in the world of Bushmills, it's something that a question that I get quite a lot is, how should I drink this? Yeah. And my answer, like I said, was always the same. However way you like to is absolutely perfect. So if you enjoy that neat, brilliant, no problem. If you feel like you need or want a drop of water in there to open it up a wee bit, that's no problem at all. Just don't drown it, is what I would say. If you like ice, okay, that's not my particular preference, because I think bringing the temperature down, you lose some of the notes that we really want you to experience. But again, if that's your preferred way of enjoying, go for it. If it's in a mixed drink or a cocktail, great, no problem. And there's also no reason that you can't enjoy any of these whiskies in multiple different ways. Yeah. So there's that sort of broad spectrum there. Why the 14-year-old particularly seems to be the weapon or a weapon of choice for a lot of cocktail bartenders currently is it comes down to the caskets. Yeah. So traditionally what you would see is a lot of Bushmills being utilised in classic cocktails. Mm-hmm. So whiskey sours and Tipperaries and Manhattans and things like that. There's others there, obviously, that I haven't included, old fashions, etc. But the 14-year-old, it tends to invoke a bit of curiosity. Yeah. So particularly with some of your higher end bars where you would see the 14-year-old featured in menus, it is almost a project where, okay, we have to try and dissect this whiskey first and take it in a completely different flavour map. So because of the caskings, your first fill bourbon, like naturally that's going to bring that innate sweetness that we spoke about initially. So your honeys, vanillas, caramels, toffees, etc. What intrigues us about the 14-year-old is that second fill bourbon cask. Mm-hmm. So the second fill, the notes are a bit rounded. Those sweet notes have been rounded out ever so slightly, which in itself masquerades as orchard fruit. Yeah. So if we find a cask that's going to accentuate our DNA and those notes that we want you to experience in every single drop of Bushmills, it's a no-brainer that we're going to utilise that cask. Mm-hmm. The Malaga is a really, really interesting one. So the Malaga wine, it's a fortified wine from Malaga, believe it or not. And I know you guys in here have a massive knowledge of wine and wine guys. I've never, try as I might, I've never been able to broaden my knowledge of the wine world. Yeah. It takes a lot of practice of drinking wine, trust me. Spirits, no problem. That's my bag. Wine, I know what's red, I know what's white, and I know what I like, and that's pretty much the extent of my knowledge. But I got really invested in learning a wee bit more about the process behind the Malaga wine. Mm-hmm. So this will probably resonate with you more so than it will with me. But so it actually originates from the Alexandria grape. So the oldest grape strain in the world, dating over 2,500 years. 2,500 years, sorry, back to ancient Egypt. So I got really, really interested because I'm interested in history. Yeah. How does a grape strain originating in ancient Egypt find its way to Central Europe? Yeah. And naturally it's through trade and ports and things like that. But such was the quality and the I suppose the quality, the scarcity, with the distance between the two geographical areas, and the demand for the Alexandria grape, that it was utilised as currency in some of these trading ports.
Right.
So like I wouldn't fancy my chances coming up here and trying to buy a bottle of Bushmills with a handful of grapes, but
probably won't go as the best for you.
No, I can't imagine so. But you know, back in those times, those savvy around those sort of trading ports, the lower Spanish trading ports, and even into Portugal as well, and touches into Italy, were smart enough to realise that I can take this, plant this, grow more, sell myself, and so that was kind of the origin of the Alexandria grape ending up in Central Europe. The grapes used particularly in this strain of wine that we've used, they're sun dried in the Malaga heat as well. So when it comes to that pressing, they're like flavour grenades. So the intensity and the robustness of what we're able to extract from that cask in terms of flavour compounds, aromatics, even into colour and textural viscosity, is kind of doubled. It's brought to the nth degree. So we found a very, very robust cask in terms of its characteristics that we can utilise for that finishing period. And then the taste profile is so vast. That again, you know, it's in that world of fortified wines, and it's such a broad spectrum of everything from toasted nuts to dried fruits to syrupy treacle sweetness and everything in between.
I'm nearly getting a little bit of like citrusiness, and I don't know whether that's...
I get that particularly from the second fill bourbon myself. Again, which was why it was a no-brainer to kind of utilise that cask somewhere within the process of upping those orchard fruit notes and that touch of citrus. For me, whenever all three were kind of brought together, and I still remember trying this whiskey for the first time in Alex's office, and there's just a bit of a game that kind of goes on periodically where there's just a whiskey in a glass with no bottle or anything near, and it's just try that, strip it back, and see if you can kind of put your finger on the pulse here in terms of what we're using. And for me, I remember trying it and thinking, okay, I'm getting sweetness, I'm getting a lot of orchard fruit coming through, I'm getting a slight astringency coming from what I assume is the Malaga here. So you're probably more adept at this than me, but anytime that I try to explain the flavour of a grape,
I'm not the best at it, but look, watching Paddy do it is something else.
Maybe I need to take a tutorial from Paddy, but my extent is, you know what a grape tastes like. It's kind of like, you know what I mean? But it's so much deeper than that. So what I start to get then as a secondary layer is a lot of sort of springtime stone fruit. So peaches and apricots and stuff starting to come through. There's a lot of essential residual oils that we've taken just due to that pressing, that sun drying and that pressing of the grape. A lot of those residual oils that we're able to actually bring into the eventual bottle and into your dram that you have in front of you. So there is a bit of a textural viscosity there, and an intensity of a textural viscosity that you might have experienced with like say the 10-year-old, which is a bit lighter and brighter. So with that, what I kind of get from this, that textural component coming into play, a lot of orchard fruit, sweetness, and the star of the show being, for me, peaches and apricots. This is like my boozy version of a peach petit filou. I get that textural creaminess, which is kind of very long lasting. It aids the finish as well because it just makes it travel. And like I said, I'm a sucker for peaches and apricots and things like that there in springtime and in the early summertime. They're just crowd pleasers. So those were the notes that kind of popped out to me straight away, and that's where I landed. Boozy peach petit filou, which
makes it very interesting in cocktails.
It does, and a lot of people, you know, take that. This probably answers the question of why the 14 in cocktails, because once that note is kind of revealed to them, or they experience that for themselves, you know, there's passion fruit starts to come in, and mango, pineapple, and all, and you can start to take that cocktail in a lot of different directions. Outside of your traditional classics of an old fashioned or whiskey sour, which it makes a fantastic old fashioned whiskey sour, etc.
I can see that, because a lot of people experiment with like bitters and stuff like that, and using like peach bitters and stuff like that. But you wouldn't need it as much.
Personally speaking, I don't think so. That's not to say that there aren't a couple of cocktails out there that some peach bitters and things like that would absolutely work with the 14 in a cocktail, but there's a lot of them you don't really need, because the intensity of the peaches and apricots is in there already. It's one of my favorite ones to make is with the 14 is a peach and passion fruit iced tea.
Right.
That I kind of roll out the odd time, roll out for a couple of events, and sometimes in the summer I just batch a load of it up and just have it sitting there at any given time.
And what goes into that?
So you can have it still, or you can have it carbonated.
Right.
I went through a very, very labour intensive process of making my own peach and passion fruit iced tea, but there are brands out there. Like there's a are we able to say?
I don't know.
There's a very very reputable peach iced tea out there. Okay. I'm pretty sure it's like the only commercial peach iced tea out there in the market, which you can get, which I once substituted in for making my own. Added a touch of peach liqueur into it. Typically working off a base of anywhere between 35 and 50 ml of the 14-year-old, 15 ml of peach liqueur. Relatively speaking, you can either top with it's Lipton. It's Lipton. Right. So you can top with a Lipton, or super simple. You can bring that 75% of the way and add a touch of bubbles into there, be that soda or lemonade or whatever you want. Just to kind of give it a wee bit of effervescence. So that's one that I've rolled out for a couple of events. It's one that a lot of people that I know in my personal life who are traditional non-whiskey drinkers, they don't know what's in it, but they try it and go, "Jeez, that's lovely." And actually, my wife requested that I batch up a couple of liters of that for her work staff do last Christmas. They were having a few drinks in the office and then heading out into town. So, and that was 75% of people who would tell you they don't drink whiskey.
Do you think do you think people then go to try whiskey a bit more because of the cocktails, or do you think?
I think it's a mix of both. I think the overall demographic on a global scale for whiskey has changed massively for the better, in my opinion. There's a broadening of anywhere between 18 and 88 or 18 and further on than that are drinking whiskey. Cocktail culture has helped that quite a bit. Accessibility in the mixed drinks has helped that quite a bit. And you're seeing people now who 3 years ago, 5 years ago, if you offered them a whiskey, would say, "I can't drink that." And now they're so much more receptive to it. Ourselves, much like any other distillery out there, what are we aiming for? We're aiming to find a whiskey to suit absolutely everybody. Now, that might never happen, but what I've found personally in my role, and I found it very, very gratifying, is I've been able to convert some non-whiskey drinkers into drinking whiskey, and that traditionally has been with either the 14 or the 16-year-old malt. Right. So if that's your entry level, your entry level whiskey that you're latching onto, then fair play to you. But that's something amazing about Bushmills, that it does at times have that power to sort of to change people's perceptions, change people's minds, and bring more people into that world of whiskey.
I think that comes from your DNA with that sweetness that comes through. I think that really helps. A lot of people, when they think of whiskey, it's just strength. It's just a lot of I don't like the word, but the burn
so
of the alcohol.
I don't like it either.
It really puts people off, but I think the sweetness that you get from the bourbon and the sherry, Oloroso sherry that you use in most of the whiskies really cuts through that a lot.
Yeah, and it's I suppose that comes down to the personnel as well that we have behind the scenes. There is a mastery of balance of flavours that happens behind the scenes in Bushmills, and it's very, very exact. It's very precise, and it lends, it transcends through to some of those points that you're making about there is an absence. I hate the word as well. There is an absence of burn. And it's, you can find other ways to explain exactly what you're experiencing. What we want to do is first and foremost showcase our DNA.
Yeah.
This is in any drop that we distill. We want that DNA to be prevalent within every single drop that we distill.
Yeah.
And we run tests on that sometimes as well, just to double check. But also, you know, we're in more or less every occasion we're hand selecting our casks from our trusted partners that we've worked with for generations.
Yeah.
And on occasion, we're not only hand selecting the casks, we're actually hand selecting the liquid that goes into those casks, and then revisiting after a period of time. So we're incredibly invested in from the foundation point of that process. So we can forecast to a certain degree of exactly what we want consumers to be tasting and when.
Yeah.
Naturally, all of our palates will be completely different, but we can. The point I'm getting at is that we can negate that burn, for want of a better word, and actually push you, or gently nudge you, I should say, closer into thinking more about the caskings.
Yeah.
Why they're so deliberate. What they're bringing to the table, and not just being taken aback by, that's hit me like a ton of bricks. Because I've been there, I've experienced some whiskies out there on a global scale, which knocked me for six straight away. And
but I think that's a sign of a good whiskey, though, is the fact that you don't get that high alcohol flavour.
I think so. And you know, if you, I know we haven't got any on the table here, but if you're talking about the likes of the Causeway collection, something that I hear most frequently about the Causeway collection, which is inherently a collection of cask strength whiskey, so above 48% non-chill filtered, what I get from people frequently is that's X%, but it doesn't taste like that, it doesn't come across like that. And the Marsala was an example of that at 57.8% ABV. And whenever I was bringing that along to any tastings or showcasing that in any way and told people that percentage, they kind of went, really? Like, I thought it would have been high 40s. Yeah. You know, and you're going, well, no, but that's great to hear that what you're actually experiencing is the cask, the influence of the casks that we've deliberately selected, and the influence that they're bringing, you know, and we're taking you on that flavour journey as opposed to getting hit like a ton of bricks. Yeah. You know. Which is what you want to do. No, it's categorically what we want to avoid.
So move on to the 16, which is my personal favourite.
I thought it might be.
I don't know whether it's just because I've had the 16 more than the others, other than the 10, I'd say, but I think it was the first Bushmills I ever had after I started drinking whiskey properly, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it kind of has a special place.
I mean, it has a special place in a lot of people's hearts. Typically, any time that I've had the 16, I popping a bottle open on a tasting, whatever, 9 times out of 10 it's come out as people's favourite. Yeah. People resonate with it. They find a bit of a home in it. It's very comforting. For reasons we'll get into when we start talking about the casks. Just to go back to the favourite child, this is quite interesting, the fact that categorically pre-14 the 16-year-old was 9 times out of 10 people's favourite. Yeah. And if I was doing a sweep of the room of just give me a quick show of hands, it was overwhelming. Yeah. What we're seeing now is, and I think this is fantastic and really, really healthy, is that there's competition there. Now, when 14 and 16 are on the same tasting mat, it's splitting the crowd. So we are doing what we said we wanted to do, and we are doing what we set out to do in creating a whiskey for everybody. Yeah. And when you see people sort of latching on to individual SKUs, if you have these 5 whiskies in front of you on a tasting mat, and the room is relatively split 20% for each, then happy days. That's fantastic. But the 16 will always have a special place in people's hearts. Yeah. So we hark back a wee bit to our traditional dual casking for maturation. So this is bourbon and Oloroso sherry. Finishing period for about 9 months, can be up to a year in ruby port. Okay. So why we see a lot of people kind of finding a home with the 16-year-old is typically red wine drinkers. Yeah. Okay. Love it. Typically red wine drinkers love it. I always ask the question, are there any port drinkers in the room? And that sort of stuff. And typically it always comes out, oh yeah, and around Christmas and things like that, which I always find very interesting. Yeah. Why do you drink port at Christmas? And when we sort of strip it back, it's because it's very warming, and it's very wholesome, and it's very comforting. And often if you probe a bit deeper into that, so where do you live? All right, you live here in Northern Ireland. The weather is typically not the best.
Yep.
So when we get into those winter months, it's wet and dark and cold outside.
Yeah.
It's probably dark when you're going to work. It's dark when you're coming home from work. All you want to do after you finish is probably close the door, not cross it again.
Yeah.
Sit your arse in a seat with something that's just going to warm you from within and make you very, very feel very comfortable and at home. And we find that is the 16-year-old. The port influence is so robust and intense in the best way possible with a 16-year-old that it can't help but warm you from within.
Yeah. I think just from tasting it there, I think it comes from the spices.
Yeah.
This is like dried fruits. And you go back to that Christmas cake.
Yeah.
It just reminds you of that time of year.
There's a couple of sort of different things at play with a 16-year-old which are super, super interesting. So the first one is that Oloroso sherry and port play very well together.
Yep.
So the innate sort of dried fruits and spices of an Oloroso sherry just play and pair fantastically well with that sort of dark hedgerow berries, jammed fruits that you come to expect from a ruby port.
Yep.
Those two bounce off each other fantastically well, and will probably battle, for want of a better word, to see who's the most dominant.
Yeah.
Neither one will come out on top by too much in the end, which means you just have this lovely harmony going on of these nice warming spices and dried fruits, and then those lovely jammed fruits sort of coming into their own from the ruby port. And then there is that sort of, obviously, the bourbon influence in there, that innate sweetness that's kind of prevalent the whole way through, and just kind of bolstering both of them. The interesting thing with the 16-year-old, and I kind of get into the psychology of taste about a year ago, and how there's some fantastic books out there on how your brain actually picks up on flavors.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of stuff, you know, your nose, your throat, and everything's connected and stuff like that there, but actually it's subliminal reactions to flavor profiles that you're trying, particularly if you're trying them for the first time, but even when you're revisiting. So I read a fantastic theory one time about taste receptors and things like that you make a subconscious link with something that is incredibly personal to you. Yeah. So if there's 30 or 40 of us in a room, there's 40 different memories of going on, of a favorite dish, a holiday, something you've experienced in your past, which I always find super, super interesting. And when we crack open the 16-year-old, particularly if it happens to be in around a Christmas time sort of tasting or something like that, as soon as you tell people that, sometimes they haven't even realized that there's something going on in their brain, and there's all these neurons shooting across with all these memories.
So someone's told me that theory before, and I always remember a rum that I tried. It was the Bruegel 1888, and as soon as I tried it, the first thing I could think of was sitting in my mum's kitchen eating banoffee pie, because you just get all them flavors. And I suppose that's where it comes to when you're saying about all these weird flavors that you pick out, it does just click in your mind.
Absolutely. That thought. You'll remember our last release in Causeway Collection for Ireland, the 2010 cognac cask finish. For me, that is memories of family holidays when me and my brother were young to northwest Donegal, and we were given a bag of those pear drop sweets, you know, the hard sweets. We used to fight like cat and dog in the back seat of the car. My mum and dad just had this sort of ingenious idea of, we might buy ourselves enough time to get the Letterkenny without them murdering each other in the back seat here, because all you can do with those sweets is just sit and suck and just let them dissolve, and they're so intense of that caramelized pear. So that's an example of something that jumped out to me. The other interesting thing is, and it maybe comes from the fact that the port is so warming and welcoming within the 16-year-old, is that as you've gone through the first three whiskies, there's been different sort of designations on your palate that you've experienced that more intensely. The 16-year-old actually starts from your sternum. It starts from here and works its way out. I just instinctively, once I joined Bushmills and obviously was out telling the story of the 16-year-old, I used warm from within as a quote just because that's what it did for me.
Yeah.
But the amount of people that actually resonate with that and say, right enough, initially I got a semblance on my palate, but then really intensely it starts from here, starts from your core, and just works its way out. And before you know it, you just feel nice, relaxed, like at home, comforted.
I'm feeling that now. Like, I just haven't tried it, and like I love the winter. All I can think about right now is just having a glass of that, having the fire on in the corner, watching a movie. You know, like it's that warming feeling that you get in the sternum.
And I can wholeheartedly understand why a lot of people find a home in Bushmills 16-year-old, and why for a long time it has been a fan favourite, and continues to be so as well. It's just because there's another one of our whiskies sort of clipping at the heels there. It continues to still be an out and out favourite for some Bushmills fans. So I mean, it's just an incredible drop, you know. And I'm actually in my journey with Bushmills, I'm yet to hear or meet a single person who doesn't enjoy it. Which is fantastic in whiskey terms, because you know we're never shooting for 100% with any of these whiskies. You know, they're with such a broad market globally and so many different palates. You know, we're well aware that there will be people who prefer one whiskey over the other, and et cetera, et cetera. That's life. That's what makes the whiskey industry so brilliant. Is that it invokes conversation like no other spirits category. It, whether you anticipated it was going to or not, it kind of pushes you to sit down with some friends and start a conversation and throw about opinions and what, you know, what your favoritism is and all this sort of stuff. So it doesn't happen with any other spirits category, I don't think, on the same level. And the 16-year-old is one that really sparks a lot of that conversation with people from what we see in a Bushmills context. I
think from us here as well, like, we'll have conversations with people. Bushmills 16 is always one that people will always come back to. Not just the 16, but Bushmills as a whole. Someone like it may not necessarily be everyone's number one or number two, but it's always in the conversation as they really like that Bushmills or that Bushmills, and that's great to see. Absolutely. And you know, like I said at the start, you know, our mission is to find that whiskey for everyone. And with that, naturally, you'll have people who, like I said, prefer one over the other. We enjoy that. We relish that conversation, and we relish people's feedback on trying something for the first time, which is why in my role the hardest thing is actually selecting which whiskies to put on an individual tasting, because our portfolio has grown so much over the past couple of years. So you almost try and tailor that to a room the best as you possibly can, to have as many things as they haven't experienced before. You know, and you might throw in one sort of crowd pleaser in there, relatively speaking. But if we can challenge people's palates to try something completely new, we absolutely always will. You know. 21-year-old? Okay. So it's potentially a wee bit out of my reach if you want to grab, and I trust you to pour. That's dangerous, but I always love the colour of this, like the box. I mean, the whiskey as well, obviously, but there's something beautiful about the grey. It's quite distinct. Within the distillery, we have sort of two factions at any given time, and there's Team 16, there's Team 21. And you know, they'll. It's not to say that they sit in opposite tables at the canteen or anything like that, you know, but they know which is their favourite, and gladly have the spirited debates around it. And it's a really interesting one to have, because the 16 and the 21 are so chalk and cheese. You know, there aren't similarities really as we go left or right here. All stand on their own 2 feet, but we find that the majority of the debate comes with 16 and 21 and kind of the comparison there. 21 for me personally is the most complex whiskey we have in our portfolio. And I include our Prestige range in there. I include Causeway Collection. I think that there's so much packed into the 21 in terms of waves of flavour and experiential qualities in terms of like texture and viscosity and things like that. That comes from Madeira. So this is at a 2-year finishing period in Madeira wine casks from Portugal. Where I said earlier on that we experiment
a hell of a lot with the world of fortified wines. For me, Madeira is the most challenging out of the fortified wine world.
Right.
With the likes of the Marsala that we've had there before and the Malaga, there's a broad spectrum of flavour and aromatic compounds kind of involved in there. But to a degree, you can get relatively close to a tasting note there.
Mm-hmm.
With Madeira, there's so much going on. There's so much chucked in there that it's nigh on impossible to land on one note and stick on it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I say to people whenever we're incorporating the 21-year-old into a tasting is your first sip versus your second sip versus your third sip are all completely different.
Yeah, weirdly, my first sip there, I got like a real greenness from it, and that's dialed back a little bit more into the dried fruits in the second sip. Mm-hmm. Go for the third.
So Madeira for me is it's a bit of a roller coaster ride for your palate. Mm-hmm. Any other distilleries who have utilised Madeira somewhere within their maturation will know exactly what I'm talking about with that.
Yeah.
It is a very robust liquid in itself. It's very intense across the board in terms of flavour, aromatic compounds, texture, colour as well, which obviously adds to the eventual colour of your liquid there. You know, it will be intense on all fronts. Yeah. And for want of a better word, Madeira, when it's involved, will relatively speaking want to kick the door off the hinges. Yeah. So it'll always want to be the star of the show. And for me, and for that reason, the 21-year-old in a Bushmills context is a fantastic, if not one of the best examples of that mastery of balance of flavours. Yeah. Because you can always run the risk when you're utilising such a robust and intense cask like Madeira that it's just going to overtake everything. Yeah. And like I said, our mission at the start is that you experience that Bushmills DNA in every single drop.
You definitely do, especially that third one. That third taste there is the sweetness, and then I get a bit more of like the green apple coming through, which I didn't get in the first two sips. Yeah. But definitely on that third one, you do taste it a lot more.
It's one that I love incorporating in tastings, and I love asking for feedback or people throwing out a couple of notes, because this is the one where if you've 50 people in a room, 50 different answers come out, which I think is great, because that shows the diversity of whiskey as a category, and just how diverse we get into things with Bushmills. So like the Madeira in itself, there's elements of, you're absolutely right, citrus in there, sweetness, salinity, herbaceousness. It's quite floral, you know, earthy. There's all these things that if you write them down on a list, they shouldn't work well together. No. But again, with the right minds behind your distillery, you can make that diversity work for you. Yeah. And like for me, it's interesting, you've gone down the orchard fruit green apple route, which I get, and it typically comes across in my second sip. But what I'm overwhelmingly kind of brought to, and this is probably down to my palate and how I taste things, but I get the floral hits and the herbaceousness. Yeah. And then I get that undercurrent, like we're working with milk chocolate undercurrent from malted barley, essentially, from distilling, with malted barley. But Madeira in itself has notes of dark chocolate coming through, and quite bitter dark chocolate coming through, which kind of work parallel. So where my palate kind of picks this up is, and this is a weird taste note, I realised I didn't do mine for the 16 actually. I'll circle back on that. But for the 21, the dark chocolate and the milk chocolate kind of working in tandem, and very floral and herbaceous notes like rose water, rose petal, even into like, dare I say it, kind of like mint and a kick of like basil and all those things, which you wouldn't normally associate with whiskey.
Kind of got that on the first sip, that green like herbalness, almost like a, I don't want to say a grassy sort of note, but that real greenness that you get from those sort of like fresh herbs. Yeah.
Well, I for me, I land on it's like a boozy Turkish delight. That's where I
haven't had Turkish delight since I was about 6 years old and hated it, so I haven't tried it since. So I'll take your word for that one.
Well, here's the thing, I hate Turkish delight. If you were to run down and grab me a Turkish delight now, I'd say thank you very much, and I'd throw it in the bag, and you know, you wouldn't know, but I wouldn't eat it. But put that into a whiskey context, and I'm intrigued, and I'm in. Yeah. And the potential for having, you know, a complete flavour journey going on the palate, which is so diverse.
Yeah.
Really, really interests me. So, sort of to bookend, whereas I say personally, like the 10-year-old is that barbecue whiskey type thing, where it's light and approachable. You're cooking up a few burgers with sunshine, and the 21 is definitely one of those ones. You know, clear a half an hour out of your schedule, get comfy, sit down, really get the cogs turning.
Yeah.
Deep delve a wee bit further into what's in your glass and what those casks are really bringing to the table. You know, so like for that reason, that's why I say that's our most complex whiskey in the portfolio, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like I said, I realised I passed over the 16 tasting note. I actually have to admit I stole this from Jim Ingram down in the Friend at Hand.
Yeah.
Who gave me this taste note, and I didn't want to agree with it. I didn't want to like it, but for me, it's actually bang on once you taste the liquid. So, obviously, big port hits those jam fruits, jam berries, and a touch of sweetness from the bourbon, the astringency coming through from the sherry.
Yep.
His was like boozy blackcurrant fruit pastels, which hit the nail on the head for me.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Our palates are all going to be so different and so challenged. For me, that was one that just completely hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And I found it hard not to agree with him
Yeah.
on that one. But conceivably, you know, if your answer is anything that you can make a jam out of and it's red, that's
no, fair enough.
Kind of falls into that, yeah.
Definitely see that. Yeah. So we're kind of running out of time here. We've covered everything. We've covered everything well.
Yeah.
If you're okay with it, at some point we'll get you in to do a prestige taste. Well, not tasting. Sorry. Chat about the prestige whiskies.
Absolutely.
At a later date, and we'll get a fresh podcast for that one, because that'll be a really good episode. And I think diving into them ones would be really interesting, especially the crystal malt, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
I think a good chat about that. And
absolutely. Yeah. I'd love the opportunity to chat about them. You know, if we were to try and chat about them all today, we'd need a lot more time and a much bigger table as well, which is no bad thing. So absolutely, I'd love to come back and chat about the world of prestige Bushmills too. Yeah,
we'll definitely get you back for that. Thank you for letting me taste them all. Thanks for coming in and chatting. Absolutely awesome. Love the stuff, and have to say, I would always been 16, but there's something about the 21 there that's just kind of it's creeping in there. Okay. 14, 12 and 10 are always there as well.
Yeah.
There's something about, I've always been 16 over 21, but I think I'm kind of leaning the other way now.
Fantastic. That's what we're looking for.
Well, there you go. Yeah, thanks again, and
thanks.
Get you in for another one.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.